Welcome, students, to Chapter 2. We're going to talk about measurement. This is Lesson 2.1. In 2.1, we're going to learn about the customary system. And the customary system is just one of the types of measurement systems that we use in the U.S. It's the one that we know and use the most often, which is inches, feet, yards, pints, quarts, tablespoons, ounces. It's the standard that we use for the most part in the U.S. Now, one of the things that we use when we have different units of measure is we have to use a conversion factor. We want to compare one to another. So if I have 36 inches and I want to know how many feet that is, I have to have some type of a conversion factor that's going to relate the two to each other. And the way we would do that is by looking at our units of measure here and seeing an equivalent in what we want. So for instance, if I have 36 inches and I want to know how many feet that is, I need to find the conversion unit that has inches and feet. And that would be right here. Here I have 12 inches is the same as 1 foot. Now I can write that as a fraction. 12 inches is the same as 1 foot. Whenever we want to do a conversion, we want to be able to treat the unit of measure like it is a variable. So what that means is we're going to turn our original unit that we have into a fraction. So 36 inches, and we can turn any whole number into a fraction just by putting it over 1. So then we treat the unit of measure like a variable. And that means we want to cancel it out to convert it to something else. So we are going to create a ratio here that is the same as this, that just puts inches in the bottom. And all you have to do is just flip it. So 1 foot would go in the top and 12 inches would go in the bottom. That allows us to cancel out inches and then perform the calculation. 36 times 1 would be 36. And that unit of measure would be feet because that's the only unit of measure we have left. And 1 times 12 is 12. 36 divided by 12, that would equal 3 feet. So now we know how many feet 36 inches is equivalent to. So that's how we would use the conversion factors of the units of measure reference system that we're given. So why don't we try example problem number 1. Example 1 says to convert 5 yards to inches. So first we need to look at our conversion system and see what unit of references we need to go from yards to inches. So from yards to feet, I know that 1 yard is going to be the equivalent of 3 feet. And I know that 1 foot is the equivalent of 12 inches. So there I go from yards to feet and then from feet to inches. So let's do this. Let's take our 5 yards, turn it into a fraction by putting it over 1, and then let's convert yards to feet by putting yards in the denominator. So 3 feet over 1 yard. Now, the reason I can do it like this, the reason I can flip it whichever way I want, is because these are equivalent values. That'd be the same thing as if I had said 3 over 3. I could put either 3 in the top or either 3 in the bottom because it's the same value. So in these unit references, this is the same value as this, which allows me to put whichever one I need in the numerator and whichever one I need in the denominator. So now that I have it like this, I can cancel yards, and I see that I have 5 times 3, that's 15 feet. So now I'm going to convert those feet into inches. So I have feet in the top, I need to get rid of feet and turn inches into inches. So I'm going to convert that by putting feet in the in the denominator. In the bottom, that allows me to cancel those out, just like a variable. And now my unit of measure is inches, which is where I wanted to go. So I just have to multiply. 5 times 3 is 15. And 15 times 12 is 180. So 180 over 1 is the equivalent inches that 5 yards has. So 180 inches would be my final answer. Right, so it's exactly, if any of you have taken pre-algebra or algebra 1, it's exactly the same method that we used in that class. Let's do example problem 2. So here we have something smaller to something bigger. We're going to use the exact same procedure regardless of whether we go from feet to inches or inches to feet or feet to miles. But we do need to know how many feet is in a mile. And in 1 mile, there are 5,280 feet. That's my unit of reference. So let's turn this into this. So first off, I'm going to write this as a fraction. And then I'm going to use this unit of reference with feet in the denominator, which is the way it's already written. So 1 mile over 5,280 feet. All right, and then that allows me to cancel out feet. Now my unit of measure is miles. So I have 17,160 over 5,280. And whatever that number is going to end up being miles. So let me pull up my calculator. Here's my calculator. So we're just going to type these values in. 17160, that's 17,160 divided by 5,280 feet is equal to 3.25. So our answer is 3 1/4 of a mile is the same as 17,160 feet. Let's do the last example problem. So here we're converting ounces to quarts. So I need to have the unit of measures that will take me from ounces to quarts. So since ounces are smaller, we're going to start there and work our way up to quarts. So I can go from ounces to 1 cup. So 8 ounces is 1 cup. And 2 cups is 1 pint. And 2 pints is 1 quart. All right, so that is the path I need to travel in order to get from ounces to quarts. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to turn 160 ounces into its own fraction. Then I'm going to multiply to go to cups. So that means I've got to put ounces on the bottom. So 1, I'm just going to say C for cup, and then that'd be over 8 ounces. Those are equivalent values. That cancels ounces and turns this into cups. Now I am going to go from cups to pints. Now since cups is in the top, I need to put cups in the bottom. So 2 cups is the same as 1 pint. And now that cancels my cups. Now I'm in pints. So now I need to go from pints to quarts. So I'm going to put 1 quart is the same as 2 pints. And now I can do the math associated. 160 times 1 times 1 times 1 is 160. I'm sorry, I should have canceled my pints already. 8 times 2, that is 16. 16 times 2, that's 32. My remaining unit of measure is quart, which is where I wanted to go. So all I need to do is the math associated with 160 divided by 32. And when I do the math, I find that that is 5 quarts. So 160 ounces is the same as 5 quarts. And actually, what that should be, I shouldn't have an S on there. That should just be QT is all that should be. 5 QT. All right, that is all that we have for lesson 2.1. If you have any questions about how to do these conversion type problems, just remember that when you want to cancel and change, when I say cancel, I mean change a unit of measure to another. We're going to treat the unit of measure as if it is a variable. So if that unit of measure is in the numerator of the starting fraction, it needs to be in the denominator of the next fraction. And then that allows you to treat it like a variable and just cancel it out. And then whatever the unit of measure is that is on the top in the numerator, that is going to be your new unit of measure. And if you have to change it to something else, then you just repeat the process. Put it in the next fraction in the denominator, and that will allow you to cancel it and move to the next unit of measure, and so on until you get to the unit of measure that you need. And that is the entire process. The beauty of using fractions or ratios, which is what these are, the beauty of using these is that you are both multiplying and dividing at the same time. So if you struggle with, do I need to multiply to go from one unit of measure to the other, or do I need to divide to go from one unit of measure to the other? This takes care of that. It answers the question for you. You don't have to remember whether you're supposed to multiply or divide, because this does both of those in one step. And that's all we have for lesson 2.1. I'll see you in lesson 2.2.